Welcome. Today is another walk and talk. Let's see if I can get this stabilized up a little bit. That might be better. I've already seen some chipmunks. I can hear them. Red-winged blackbirds today. And a breeze. I hope it doesn't affect the sound too much. We're on a paved trail. My prep today was to make sure I had sunscreen and bug repellent on, and I am wearing a hat. This is the place where I got a Lone Star tick in my ponytail, so I'm extra careful. Although I love this canopy above me. That's how I got the tick. It just fell or jumped right down onto my ponytail. Didn't think that was too cool. I hear some robins. Somebody posted on Facebook a little video of deer running across in front of them. That has happened to me right in this section before. So today I thought I would talk about a woman that comes up. I like to talk about eccentric women, and at one point I had kicked around the possibility of having a whole channel no wildlife down there. Let's see what's on the other side. Looking for that turtle. Sometimes groundhogs and herons. Oh boy, that's dry and not particularly scenic today. Some days it's really pretty. But we'll move on. There's also usually a beaver trail or a beaver den along here. The trail masters try to keep it broken up, but the beavers are tenacious. They just move it. So anyway, I like to talk about eccentric women. Eccentric meaning they're sort of trailblazers and comfortable in their own skin as they're doing it, determined with their pursuit. And a name that always comes up when I'm asking friends about who would they say is an eccentric woman, and they usually say Lucille Ball. And yes and no. I think that Lucille Ball was quite an eccentric woman, a trailblazer. In the 50s and 60s, when she was helping create Desilu Productions with her husband, Desi Arnaz, it was unheard of for a woman to be a CEO of a company. In fact, it wasn't until 1974 that women could even legally own property and have credit cards. So for her to have her name as CEO in itself was quite groundbreaking. But as far as Lucy, that was a comedic character that she took on. In fact, a couple of the most loved episodes of I Love Lucy were written by another woman who also was groundbreaking, because women didn't write television in the early days. I don't believe I remember her last name, but her first name was Madeline, and she was one of the people who inspired the I Love Lucy show. She had written I don't know if it was radio or early television show called My Favorite Husband, which was the inspiration for I Love Lucy. And this Madeline married to a television writer. They worked as a team. And like I said, she actually wrote the wonderful Vita Vegemine and the Lucy and Ethel candy store episodes of I Love Lucy. Now, nothing to take away from Lucille Ball's comedic timing and genius. And even the red hair was not really hers. So she created the persona of Lucy. But Lucille Ball was a strong force, a businesswoman, determined. I have heard from a friend who works for an airline, when they saw Lucy coming in, they actually referred to her as the Dragon Lady, because she was difficult to please. Even in her first class seating, she was not very personable to staff, which is a disappointment, because that's not what we want to believe about Lucy. But she got things done, and if being difficult, here we're going to head off the trail onto this gravel trail for a while, around the lake, Friendship Lake, I believe they called this. So anyway, Lucy, in her determination and strong will, built an empire. And I read that after she divorced Desi, she was not even allowed to own what had previously been her own interest as CEO of Desilu Productions, because women just were not allowed. That's disappointing. Thankfully, young women have closed that gap in the generations since then, and women do have more rights to have credit, to own property. In fact, in my own life, when I paid off my house, the loan officer came out of her office. There's a bunny crossing the trail. And she said, I wanted to come out and congratulate you. In the 17 years that I've worked in mortgage loans at this bank, I've never seen a single woman on her own income pay off a house. Yay. So, and that was in the 2000s when I paid off my house. So many, many generations, what, 2, 3, since Lucy in the 50s was one of the heads of Desilu Productions. One of the stories that I love about Lucille Ball, was her instincts. For Trekkies, she's actually known as one of the grandmothers of Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry and the people that created Star Trek could not find anyone to see their vision of Star Trek as a television show. They had been turned down repeatedly from the major networks, but thankfully Lucille Ball saw the value in the new genre of sci-fi, and she helped bring our beloved Star Trek to the airwaves. In fact, I see on my Facebook page a lot, there's a picture of an AI generated picture of Lucille Ball, in a yeoman's red uniform with her arms crossed, in a pose that we saw many times later that Captain Janeway took, determined and strong. Another show that had been refused repeatedly by producers of the major networks was The Twilight Zone. So Lucy really was a pioneer in vision of what good television could and should be. Although we best know her for Lucy, you can attribute her to some of the finest television that there is. Her legacy needs to be more acclaimed for that, in my book, than the character that was written for her. Because, like I said, that was just a character. And although brilliantly written, was not really Lucy, the subservient, ditzy housewife. That she was not. In fact, I've also heard her daughter say that her childhood was not one of a typical household in the 50s and 60s, that the kids came home from school and mom was waiting there with a snack, helping them with their homework, cleaning house with a strand of pearls, and deferring to the dad to be the disciplinarian, as we see with June Cleaver and Leave It to Beaver. Lucy Arnaz, Lucille Ball's daughter, says that her mother worked 10, 12 hours, sometimes even longer, in order to get the episode just right. And that's an incredible work ethic, especially when you read that Lucille Ball really, really wanted those kids. But her ambition, her strength, in her vision for the future of television somehow drove her more than her desire to be the domestic housewife, beloved mother. Now, Lucy Arnaz does say, on the summer hiatus, there were pool parties and vacations, and her mother, when she was with them, was all in. That's a tremendous thing. So, she left her daughter with that legacy. Love your children, love your family, but have a vision. My brother and I were recently talking about since I am in my 60s, when I turned 60 and things started to change, I was determined not to sit in a recliner for the rest of my life. That's when I started to hike. I started to take classes again because I am determined not to go gently into that good night, so to speak. I heard a killdeer, a little bird. Aw. Love to see the wildflowers on the trail. This lake usually has Canada geese, sometimes trumpeter swan, but it's awful warm, and so they are probably seeking the shelter of the shade in the underbrush. The Canada geese babies are now mobile, so the mamas probably have them under their wings, keeping them protected from the human making noise in the trail. When we get around the corner here, there's a martin house that's usually just bustling with activity. One of the things I check out when I'm on this trail. Last year, someone dumped their beautiful black domestic duck out here. Thankfully, the coyotes didn't get it. It seems to have been rescued. The naturalist for this park said he never found, excuse me, any. Let's go back. I want to show you that. Never found any evidence of a carcass. Okay, here, I'm not sure that this is showing up. There. Now, the unhappy story about that little egg is a predator tried to take that out of the nest, and it got away from him. But, you know, a lot of times we see an empty shell and we think, oh, the baby bird left its shell. And most likely, a predator took it out of its nest. But we like the fairy tale story of, oh, isn't that sweet? A baby robin has left the nest. So we'll go with that. I like that local Boy Scouts have made those bird boxes, and I have seen, when you get up closer, I won't, because if there's anything in there, I don't want to frighten them and possibly leave their nest. But when you get up closer, you can see there are twigs in those boxes, so they are being used, and that makes my heart happy. Lots and lots of bird activity. Oh, and I can smell a skunk. Oh my. Well, this is a nature trail, so there you have it. And the martins are at the martin house. They make a wonderful sound, and the way they have an aerobatic flight through the air. Got some wind. Yep. no ducks, no geese. That is surprising. Some Stelladora lilies. I love those. I have those at my house. Some sedum. I also have some of that at my house. Some coreopsis, some tansy. Tansy on the left. Chickseed or coreopsis is the little yellow. Sometimes I see kids out here fishing. It's nice to see the family activity out here. Let's see if we can get in a little closer. They are very aware that I'm here. Oh, look. Also a little wren on the wren box. You can't see from this far away. Those martins have a beautiful indigo color, iridescent, purplish blue. Very, very nice birds. We are almost to the end of the trail. The breeze is cooling down and it looks like there's rain coming. I always say I don't melt, but hey. The breeze also does not do wonderful things for the audio for this. So, since the end where you see it terminate is the end of the trail, I'll sign off. And I'm thrilled to have had this talk with you today. Another fine walk and talk. And I'll see you on the trail on another day.